That felt like a really long countdown.
It always does.
Yeah, you know, longest intro. Like I was pretty energized, and now
we're flat.
Welcome to the greatest show on earth, which is two very intelligent people, the pillars of our community, and Jay. And I'm Jay Staples. So nice to meet you. We Carsten, Joanna, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm alive.
Another day in paradise, right side of the dirt.
This may not be the best show we're going to do, but we're going to give it our all. But Jesus Christ. So anyway, well, we talked about something pre-show, but I forgot what we decided on. But any burning desires? Anyone want to talk about a topic heated on their minds?
I'm calm. I don't have anything that I'm that heated about.
But
I don't think we need the heat. You know, it's just like a little spurs to the side here, and it'll get going.
So I will say this: there was a lot of, let's just say, commenting and interactions around, when we talked last show, which was a couple of weeks back, that we're more disconnected and isolative and so forth like that than we've ever been before, and people were agreeing with that, but then also kind of wanted to follow up is what's causing that. And in a sense, there was another interesting kind of prerogative is communication skills decreasing, let's just say, because of more online communication, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like we don't know how to communicate when we're around each other in person.
Yeah, and we're texting them, like even when they're in the same room, I guess.
I mean, I don't know that's a broad brushstroke. I think that there are some people that communicate well and maybe others that don't.
Well, thank you for that deep, insight. That's what we're looking for. But
I don't know. I was just thinking of the three of us. I think we communicate pretty well in person and written as well.
Well, you're also talking to someone that basically avoided someone's phone call, and then I followed it up with a text saying, "Hey, what do you want?" So maybe I'm falling into the trap that is lack of communication, that we're not talking on the phone. I've gotten really comfortable with texting. So, I don't know if I'm part of the problem or really part of the solution.
What if it's just an absolute barrage of communication? Between email, text, and phone, phone calls, some days are overwhelming, Well,
how does this translate to helping parents? Because I think that's ultimately what we're trying to do is as far as, when you got parenting, and it's different than when we grew up, I guess. Well, I hate to say, when I grew up, we were walking in the snow uphill both ways to school, but I'm going to be my grandpa, for instance, but it is a different level of parenting. And now, I wonder what the average age of, kids getting a cell phone or iPad is. It's all around them.
Well, I can tell you what I can tell you what we do as parents is so I personally abhor. Did we lose Joanna there? Oh,
I'm having a dog issue. I'm here. I'm just trying to move my dog, so I'm listening.
Can we see your dog? I love dogs.
No, not when she is literally trying to wedge herself between my chair where the plugs are for the computer. It's not the place, not the time. I love you. I'll show you. We can show her later. But
that's That's the beauty of live things.
Your timing is impeccable.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I have a feeling you were going to forget what you were going to say, Carsten.
Oh no, it's right in the chamber. It
All
doesn't.
right, all right. Don't
I've
let Joanna.
I've gotten this kind of
disrupt you.
podcasting thing down where you can, I could have a producer in my ear right now and still remember.
We can get Pablo, our producer, on mic with you.
Yeah. So what we do, and I'm not saying that we do it perfectly, but is there are times let me start with I abhor using text as communication. It's a factual conversation. There's no nuance. What time can you pick me up? 8:00. Okay. That's about the use of text. But I think that I do feel like, and I have this happen with the guys that we work with, is they'll try to have a meaningful conversation through text. And I simply refuse to do it. Like, no, this is a phone call. This is, us meeting in person, not trying to discuss, some treatment objective or financial situation, question over text, because there's so much nuance that needs to be discussed. And I've translated that into my family. My daughter in particular, she tries to work through issues in text, and I'm like, this is unacceptable. It will never be acceptable. We will talk about this, or for now the answer is no until we can have the discussion. So that's the way that we approach it, is take texting out of trying to solve a problem. And I think that to continue this, the guys that are in treatment or in continued care with us, they're trying to do that with their parents and, work through some argument or, emotional experience or what have you through text instead of verbal, conversation on the phone or Zoom. I mean, with all the other technology, why aren't we FaceTiming each other? So we can see expression, right? So that's a lot of the coaching that we do around that, is stop texting, start talking.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo that entirely. I think that's text is the easiest form of communication that we all use, and I'm certainly guilty of it. But when it comes to any type of confrontation or like truly vulnerable conversation or like topic, it cannot be done via text. You have to hear tone, you have to hear inflection. And to your point, Carsten, I think there needs to be the opportunity to actually visually see the expressions of the other person that you're communicating with. And I do also, going back to your comment, Jay, I think that the young adults that we're dealing with nowadays too are inundated with different channels of communication. And so there's kind of this process of elimination of like, what's the easiest to get information out, but also to be behind a mask where I don't have to, I'm not fully exposed, right? Again, that's why it's like, you can just text somebody and then you get down this rabbit hole of texting back and forth in some sort of argument and you're protected rather than doing it in person. So I don't know. I have young adults that just avoid communication altogether. Like emails, phone calls, texts, like they're just like not responsive. So I think that there is certainly a point right now where some people are so flooded that they just choose not to respond, or they can't respond, honestly, because it's just so overwhelming where to even start, which channel to respond to first.
Well, now that we even talked about it, I didn't even think about this, but literally last night I was trying to get someone into a detox in California, and the admissions person was basically communicating with me through text to basically get all the information. So I think it's more prevalent in my life than that. Felt odd too. Like I've never really answered questions, and she apologized. I don't know if she was on another line or she just multitasking, but just hit me when you guys were talking. Like I think
that is unusual.
I do a lot of texting. So thankfully they actually called the family. They didn't text the family, but I think maybe I'm getting a little too comfortable with text, because it never hit my brain yesterday. Like this is very weird that I'm having a detox admission person text me all these questions and info. But anyway, I digress. But we were talking about Carsten. Well, I mean, just a preference. We spent a lot of time last week together in Colorado, and I was very curious to hear of kind of the wilderness programs of closing in the adolescent space, and you were kind of educating me on that. And then you mentioned Derek Daly had a really, I think it's the Utah Chronicle or something, had an article. I want to touch on and leave it with a broad stroke so you guys aren't painted in your thoughts on wilderness programs, and kind of just, if I just say wilderness programs and kind of turn it over to you guys, what's kind of comes first in mind?
They work. That's the first thing that comes
Carsten.
to mind. Well, what? I think that they,
that's going to be a sound clip. I'll just tell you that right now. You may go viral on just that. We may save wilderness programs on just that clip.
Well, back to the nuance, right? Like there are some, and all of a sudden I'm forgetting the name of that movie that we were talking about. That kind of outlined some of the bad players, or a couple of
Hell Camp.
What is it called?
The recent documentary.
Isn't it like Hell Camp or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's even in the title. And
yeah,
you know, I mean, based on that film, I don't agree with that model. But there are and have been plenty of excellent wilderness programs that are getting kind of sucked into this vortex. And just to say it, I mean, you got you know, essentially a celebrity. God knows how she became a celebrity, who chooses to spend, who can do whatever she wants in this world, and chooses to really poke at people who are trying to do good work. And that I think, and I'm not trying to discount their experience. It probably was bad, but you know, we tend to box things up in our culture and say this is bad because two things happened, instead of noticing the 300 great things that came out of it. So the reason I think it works is because that's our true nature. We are of the earth, and we started the conversation talking about one aspect of how we separate ourselves from that. And so there's another great movie I think it's called Grounding, that talks about just walking on the planet with your feet. Like there's an electrical charge that happens that physically grounds us. It can super help with anxiety and swelling. It's a physical, mental, and spiritual exercise. Why aren't we doing that? I think the bulk of what we're doing is throwing medications at an issue. And not that people don't need medications, but there are, you know, we call that alternative, which is really weird. It seems like it should be flip-flop. Like we should be trying this stuff, and as an alternative, then looking at some sort of, you know, pharmacological approach to things. So I think it works because it's a part of our true nature, and we can bring that into our culture and say, well, you know, it's a sense of achievement. It's a sense of accomplishment. It's a sense of belonging to a small group of people with a similar objective and achieving that. And that's all true. But I think what really happens is a transformation that happens by being close to who we really are as people.
You know, there's people, some athletes or something. So, you know, the ones I know are athletes that are just like down and out. But as soon as like the clock starts and they get on the court, they shine. Like, you know, like a player. You were complaining that you're sleepy and you know, but when that button turned to live, you woke up, dude. Like, I just want to acknowledge.
I'm
like,
tired of being
woke up, man.
That's what it is.
I mean, I've been speechless before, but never once has my soul been speechless. And you just shut down my body. So
that's not a good thing, man.
Well done. Well done. Joanna,
good thing.
First of all, you're not my wingman, so I'll start by saying that this is very much we're equitable in where we are seated at the table.
100%. You're the star. You're the star.
Oh, by far, you're the star.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna not even engage in that. But I want to talk about wilderness therapy because I've got a lot of thoughts about it. I think first and foremost, actually, before I dive into kind of do wilderness programs work or the efficacy of that as a therapeutic modality, I think you mentioned something about, hey, Carsten, there's this one face that is representing kind of this movement to close down what feel like outdated programs. I'm not going to stand against that, right? If the program is like outdated, if we're not actually using evidence-based treatment modalities, by all means, I'm joining the cause. Like, we need trauma-informed treatment.
Totally.
My biggest concern with the movement is that there is no tipping of the scales to fund or found new programs. We've got a torch and we are burning down programs that need to be closed, but we're not simultaneously opening other programs that we all collectively feel like is actually doing good work or can do good work, because the reality is we still have a colossal and growing generation of young people that need mental health support. And now all of a sudden we don't have any programs for them.
Right.
So that's what I'm seeing on the horizon. That is a concern to me in the young adult space, because now all of a sudden adolescent treatment is kind of gone as we know it. And again, I'm a bystander in this, in the sense of, I don't work in adolescent treatment. So I'm just watching this happen. But what it's telling me as a predictor is the clients that will come to me in the coming years who probably would have gone to treatment in adolescence didn't, because there weren't available options for them. So now they're coming to me or getting to young adult treatment programs when they're over the age of 18, and they're in a bad place. So that's the concern that I have is, all right, let's get rid of, sure, I support it. Let's get rid of programs that aren't doing good work, that aren't doing trauma-informed work, but you have to replace them. There has to be available resources for that same population of young people. So that's my soapbox. Now for wilderness, I'm biased because one of my undergraduate degrees is in outdoor education. So I went to school fully believing, like, one of my actual degrees is being outdoors, educating people, facilitating experiential activities, adventure-based, like you're saying, grounding kind of moments, disconnection from the tech world, and an opportunity for insight, internal exploration, and just sitting with yourself, right? That spiritual connection that we have with the earth. Like, I am fully biased. There are not a lot of true wilderness programs anymore. So that's the other, like, kind of issue that I take with this whole, like, wilderness needs to go. Well, wilderness is gone. There's literally one program that exists out there right now that's fully nomadic or expedition based. Every wilderness program, adolescent and young adult right now, is either licensed as a residential treatment program in their state or has some sort of place-based, like a base camp, whether it's mobile or stationary. They're doing challenge by choice with activities. They have multiple licensed clinicians. I mean, like, there are tons of family programming. They're not without resources. They're not without access. And just last week, I learned of a young adult program that's now going to introduce slowly tech access while they're in a, this adventure-based program. And so to me, I'm like, wilderness is not what we think it is. And a lot of what is described out there right now of these, the experiences like from Hell Camp, yeah, that's from 1999. That's right. From 2003. That's 20 years ago. Yeah. That is a very outdated model that has not been used in a very long time.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking about while you're talking there, is specifically the state of Utah has put in so many, a new, whatever you call it, code, right? Legal code to help define this, so that those atrocities that happen are, less likely to be repeated. And a lot of these programs that have recently closed down all rose to that challenge. They're not closing down because they're not meeting the state requirements. They're closing down because there's a lack of participation. So they just can't stay in business. And that's a generalization. I don't know the inside workings of everything, but I think that the other thing is and Derek, who posted that article, I know he's a part of a group of people who have worked very steadily for a long time to also increase access to these types of therapies by consistently having to almost over justify to insurance companies the efficacy of these things. And I'd say slowly but surely it's working, and there's nuance to all that, but there's insurance access that wasn't there before. A lot of these programs a while ago were private pay.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of things have been moving in the right direction. And so that's the sad thing to me, to see friends who have worked so hard to create safe places for kids to discover themselves as different human beings with self-efficacy and self-worth. And, to your point, those beds, if we want to call it that, are going away.
Yeah.
So where do they pop up at?
Well, I think you hit it. Like, these programs are closing not because of violations; it's lack of admissions. And so, it's interesting. Is it just this, movement per se, whatever you want to call it, to kill wilderness, or there's somewhere along the food chain of people sending to adolescent wilderness programs, there's a disconnect. Is it just the movement, or has there been a lack of pure? Because when I hear both of you guys talk, and you guys both have a long history with wilderness programming and young adults and just on and on and on, but you guys remind me of the whole nature and nurture and kind of, like, I'm out on the golf course. Like, there's something about just being out on the golf course, no matter what I'm scoring, but there is a healing aspect. So where in the food chain is people stop? I mean, the adolescents and wilderness programs kind of like separate.
Well, and you have to remember too, like, both Carsten and I work in the young adult world. So our lens of talking about adolescent treatment is literally what we're seeing. We're seeing some of our colleagues experience these things, right? And when I say colleagues, like other business owners or other consultants or other therapists, but I'm not in it other than being able to see, like, again, that predictability of, okay, there's a serious upheaval in treatment in adolescence, like an overhaul. And how is that going to impact my clientele in 6 months or 6 years? Like, that's what I'm paying attention to.
Well, and I suppose just to continue, I don't know about your question right off the rip here, Jay, but here's my hope, is that we're in a retooling, right? When it comes to this specific mode of treatment, is that, my hope is that some of these places that have been forced to close down are also back at their whiteboards, coming up with a new model, coming up with the next thing that incorporates adventure and the outdoors into treatment of adolescents and young adults. And I don't know why probably just because a lot of older people don't necessarily want to participate in it, but I think it's good for everybody. So my hope is that people are at their whiteboards right now going, okay, let's figure out how to make this work, because it does.
Well,
do you know what's going to work, Carsten?
I think accessibility is a big thing. Back to the insurance, I think that despite how we're hearing how great our economy is, I think that's for a small group of people. I think a lot of people are struggling and holding on to their money, their, cash, if you want to call it that. And so there's been a bigger shift to utilizing benefits. And again, there's been groups of people that have been talking about the efficacy of wilderness and why it should be a part of an insurance plan for a long time. So I don't see that.
Well, you're right. Wilderness programs, from where I'm standing it's very expensive. It's kind of the, where the upper class are fortunate to be able to afford to go to, like we were saying, if there's more accessibility, but up until this point, I've always seen wilderness programs as I went to visit them. I've been out in the wilderness, and asked that question. It's a big financial investment. So I don't know if that's it or not. Well, Joanna, I interrupted you.
Well, I was just thinking about I was thinking about a lot of things. A lot of things. Wilderness is expensive now because, again, we've got licensed, highly, therapists that have expertise, right, and are being highly sought after and working with clients. And in order for them to retain, you have to pay them well. You're also dealing with insurance, like the risk management piece. And I know that because of some of the pushback on wilderness being evidence-based as a therapeutic modality, a lot of insurance programs have increased their price by 2.5%, year over year. And so it's just impossible to actually operate having that insurance to run the business because it's way too expensive. You've also got people that are saying, look, I understand when wilderness programs started, it was like rice and lentils, right? Maybe some, oats in the morning kind of a deal. But right now we're saying we need all organic, super green. So now the cost of food or the nutrition component of the program is skyrocketed, which adds to the overall price. We've got psychiatrists that are not just consulting, but are actually on staff, right? So, it's just the list goes on for what it is that people are wanting, not just in this kind of outdoor-based experience, but also in terms of their access to the medical and clinical components to the program. So that's why you've seen it skyrocket, which then obviously grew the gap of the accessibility piece. All of that is to say, too, where I see the benefits of any type of disconnection from society is kind of resetting your sleep cycle, being physically active, because we are very much, and I say this also as a broad stroke, we are very inactive nowadays because we are so tech connected. We will go, and I say this sitting in front of a computer, which I've been seated at for the last 3+ hours. After this podcast, I need to get up and move, but people don't do that. So just to be physically active all of a sudden to hit the reset, naturally you'll just start to lose weight, right? You're going to feel better. You're going to feel stronger. It's super important. There's also the component of, again, not being able to hide behind the phone in those confrontations, the opportunity to give and receive, not just the communication, but feedback, right? Reflection is so important because I think I can show up a certain way in front of other people, but if they see me differently and they share or reflect back to me how I'm really coming across, gives me the space to not just hear it and digest it, but to actually do something with it. Wow, that's how I'm coming across, right? Again, I'm processing this. It's just, there's so much that can be done that we don't talk about. It's all little buckets of wellness, right? All of a sudden, I'm more environmentally focused. I'm also physically active, right? Again, nutritionally, I'm eating better. I'm eating regularly. And that kind of adds to the sleep and the physical nature of the work. And I'm rambling at this point, but again, I'm biased because I do see the benefit as the reset. Going to a wilderness program, I get more young adults to actually ask for it. It's not a punishment. In fact, they're saying, I need the space. I need to be in nature to actually figure out who I really am. Like, I'm getting more young adults that are asking for it. So it's such a contradiction to what we're reading in the paper or hearing from other people about the pushback. And again, it's all being lumped into wilderness therapy when it's not necessarily wilderness therapy.
Rambling or not, Joanna, I would sit Indian style on the floor and listen to you go, like, just talk. So,
I'm sorry for you.
I mean, I'm enthralled. That I don't think I've ever used the word enthralled before, but I just used it. So
correctly.
Correctly.
That's the shocking part too. But anyway, it's I don't know why. I mean, the more I hear you guys both talk is, and you, for me, inactivity is paramount. I mean, I sit behind on a desk and so forth. It's interesting why there's not a bigger push, and maybe there is, that I'm just not, tuning out, but there is a lot of healing being outside. And I can just tell, like, being around, like I said, Carsten and Kyle from Lean In last week, and other people, like, just seeing them in their day-to-day, they preach exactly what they do. Like, there was a lot of, they went out, they cleared, they disconnected, they went out on walks and didn't bring their phone, which I thought was unheard of. I mean, just stuff like that, and the yoga and just the grounding that they do. So I can tell you that Carsten and Kyle at Lean In definitely back up what they're saying. So
yeah,
anyway,
I mean, we need more of it.
It's just I think when you hear treatment, there's a lot of, like, how much one-on-one time do they get with their therapist? I think maybe we should start asking, how much time do they get with, like, nature, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've never thought about saying it, but I mean, there's some truth to it.
It's a component, but having good therapy, like Joanna talked about, like, really highly qualified and certified and experienced therapists to capitalize on the natural moments. That's where I think, the magic happens. If it's not magic, I mean, it's when skillfully done, this is an incredible mode, an incredible opportunity for somebody to do that. And I think that what we're learning now is 20 years ago, and I'm sure there still is some players out there that it's like any field, right? Any industry, if we want to call it that. Mm-hmm. But we're kind of looking at what happened 20 years ago. And if it's happening now, then they should be shut down. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, for young adults, I mean, one of the other many comments is about, parenting and kind of the, identity crisis, and these young adults finding out who they authentically are, and there's a lot of, I don't even know how to form the question around this, but as far as when you guys working with families, which I know you guys do, of young adults, like, how do you support the parents around, forming having the kids form their own identity? Is that a good question, I guess?
Yeah. I think I get where you're going at. I mean, it always comes down to, like, learning to let go of outcomes and I mean, I feel like these are just buzzwords or bumper stickers, but let go of the outcomes and trust the process. The folks that can do that, which the majority of people we work with, can find some spot in, somewhere on that continuum. They're always really pleasantly surprised at what their child is capable of, what their adult child is capable of. and it's giving them the opportunity to both make mistakes and have successes that are their own and not, preordained or manipulated so that they get that outcome.
Buzzwords and bumper stickers. I think that's going to be the name of this podcast. I just literally wanted to jump out of my chair. Anyway, I'm just going to tell you, like, I'm not going to forget that. So that's two. That's two that you just made my soul jump in my stomach. So
I'm catching up with Joanna. I think it's like 10 to 2 right now.
Well, it's a lot more than 10, but there's not really keeping score, but you would need to do it for like 24 hours straight to catch up to Joanna. But
I've had to say a lot of words to get to.
Buzzwords and bumper stickers, though. That is just classic. Gosh. Classic. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, because obviously my lens is from the consultant perspective, which is really doing a lot more education for families and from an unbiased perspective of like, I don't work for, the lean in recovery in Montana type program, I'm untethered. And so I just end up being kind of a guide where I'm allowing parents to giving them space to kind of vent some of their frustrations around expectations. But then also at some point in the process, I often fall, like I will tell programs sometimes I'll fall on the sword. Let me be the one to be assertive and say things like, you've got to let go of this vision or path that you have for your child, because that's actually what's holding them back. And sometimes, I will say this, I don't say stuff like that unless I have really good rapport with a parent. And if I think that they can actually hear it, maybe in the moment, they'll actually be like offended or upset or taken aback that I would be that direct. But because of our relationship, because of them knowing what I represent and kind of my role in the process of kind of helping them get connected to the resources, then they come around. They come around and they say, I thought about it. You're right. And then oftentimes it's a kind of a window of opportunity where if they're not working with a parent coach, maybe now's the time. Or better, they say, you know what? I'm not seeing my own therapist, but I realized that what you said really made me think that I have anxiety around letting go of the outcome for my child. And I need to work with somebody in a clinical setting to do that. Or reaching out to the program and saying, now's the time for me to actually do like a family therapy session where I just need to hear my kid directly say, parents, your vision for me is what continues to keep me in this place of shame and pressure. And the parents need to hear that from the young adult. All of this is like, it could potentially happen. But I say all of this, and it's so important to protect what it is that young adult needs, what it is that they want, because they are the priority in the process. And certainly there is some it's like picking apart, like the parent and the child interwoven as one, as a family. And now it's like time to actually separate them. It's an opportunity where you give space for your young adult to figure out what is it that they want to do. I think, Carsten, you've talked about it before, the story of the kid that was like, I want to be an artist. And parents were like, super, or whatever the example, like you could give somebody wants to be in the circus. Great. Be in the circus. But parents are, working on Wall Street and they can't wrap their head around, how are you going to take care of yourself if you're working in the circus? Well, who gives a shit? The difference is, let me be clear, can they support themselves? If they can, then that's what matters. Are they happy, or are they able to manage their emotions and they find joy in what they do? If the answer is yes, then let them be in the circus. At some point, maybe it will wane on them and they'll just decide, you know what, this isn't long-term for me. I do actually want to go work on Wall Street and kind of follow that path. But they need to come to that conclusion themselves, because if we are putting pressure on them timeline-wise or direction, then they will be miserable. And they will also be unable to truly take care of themselves because at some point they'll all just completely unravel, right? I'm having a complete mental breakdown because I have been forced down this path, which is soul sucking for me. And I want to live up to my parents' expectations. And I have come as far as I possibly could. And now it's just like, I can't wake up. I can't leave my apartment. I can't do anything. And to connect the dots, that would be the perfect example of somebody that says, I need to hit the reset. I'm going to go to this outdoor-based program. I'm going to recenter myself. I'm going to find joy in what I do. I'm going to rebuild confidence. I'm going to have clarity in my direction. And then I'm going to leave that experience with a different path. Also with communication skills for how to be direct and honest and tell parents, hey, your path is not my path.
I mean, seriously, I would sit Indian style in front of Joanna. And I mean, like, I want to run through a wall right now. I mean, like, you could be,
Don't do that.
You should talk to like kids, teams and stuff. Like, you should have talked to the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. They would have won. I just, like, you have a way of motivating. I'll just tell you that, like, I'm going to take a walk after this. You motivated me to do that. And that's impressive.
It's the reverse psychology of motivation.
Man, I like Indian style everything. Like, I would just look. I mean, I'd look up. I mean, I would hang on every word. Anyway, Carsten.
Well, I was just going to say that's what I love and admire about Joanna is that passion, and it's it is motivating. And I've seen her on panels at conferences, letting people know how it is. And it's a beautiful thing, man, because I don't know, that's a whole nother thing about how we talk. But the other thing that I was thinking is, I mean, just the three of us, here we are, as independent as we can be. And I think that it's because at some point we said, you know what? I'm tired of trying to meet somebody else's goals. Or somebody else's philosophy or approach or systems or whatever the case may be. And at some point we finally had the fear-filled confidence to step out and do something different. And I think that that's what we're trying to bring to our clients is like, you have to learn this stuff. You have to come up with good mentors in whatever field that you're doing. But eventually the idea, I think, is to break out of that and do something that's yours and do something that, evolves even further.
Well, I mean, I know this is touching on a whole new topic, and maybe we'll get to next week's buzzwords and bumper stickers, but it doesn't sound as good as it once did. And like, you need to say it, Carsten, but like, I also would say, and this is solely the opinion of Jay Staples and no one else on the show and anyone associated with Jay Staples. I'll say the PSA, but I think the industry now is turned towards profits over client needs, and I think that I can be rest assured. I just had a conversation this morning with a couple of role models and mentors in the business world here. And I get so frustrated that, I'm losing out. And they just reminded me of how many people I'm helping, and you can't put a price on that. Or did I send an invoice or not? I mean, the way that this industry is going is really it's sending the invoice first and then worrying about the client. And I think what makes everyone that I associate with, you two included, is we're always keeping the client, the parents, and everyone associated first and foremost, and then sending that invoice, after that. So anyway, that's my my pedestal moment. So
it's hard, right? Because at the end of the day, treatment programs are businesses.
Yeah.
And so in order for a business to survive, you do have to do ethical quality work, but you also have to pay the bills. So you can't right? You can't offer scholarships to everybody that comes in, or you can't, cut corners in ways just to save money, because then that impacts the treatment process and the treatment experience for the client. And so it's an unfortunate evil that exists out there, which is the programs that are more focused on the profit rather than client experience. And I think I'll speak for myself. Here's my PSA. I'm totally speaking for myself. I think that's why I continuously tour programs, because the more I see, the less I like, or the less I find doing great work. And my focus and attention is always from an individualized perspective, like, okay, here's this client in front of me. I don't refer to the same 3 programs every time. In fact, if you look at my caseload right now, every client is in a very different program. But I say all that, and oftentimes I'm looking at privately owned or family owned businesses because they are not reporting to a higher structure that is more motivated with profit margins.
Well, this has been another fascinating show of buzzwords and bumper stickers, but I prefer 2 intelligent people and then Jay. But we'll do this. Hopefully we'll do this next week if they have me. I don't know. It's like I kind of just open my house and 2 amazing people come walking in and just have this fascinating discussion every week. And I'm just sitting on the ground, just looking up in awe. So as long as they'll have me, I will keep doing it. But thank you 2 once again. But we're hopefully going to do this like every week, because people need to hear what you guys are saying, especially me. So you guys have a good week.
Take care.